And good morning, everybody. Good morning, Tanya.
Oh, good morning. Good to see your face again. I know it's been a few weeks. We took a little bit of a hiatus, had a little bit of a vacation, and we're
And,
back together as a team.
and you celebrated your birthday.
Yes, yes. We've had a lot of June is a busy month for us. Lots of celebrations, lots of fun stuff. And we threw in a little bit of COVID there too. Top it off. But it's okay. We're all happy and healthy and back to back to our everyday life here in San Antonio.
Yeah, it's good to have you back. I know you love going back home, and then coming back home.
Yes, yes. There's something special about both and enjoying and understanding the meaning of both of my homes and how special they are to me in different ways. So
Yeah, sometimes we long to be somewhere else because we miss certain things. And for me, it gets to a point where really believing I'm in this place at this moment in time on purpose, right? And it's like, okay, I really want to be in, for example, I want to go back to Egypt and like be there. And that's not happening. So what is it that I'm meant to be doing right here, right now? Because
yes.
I am here. So that helps me a lot to be able to really appreciate where life has placed me on purpose.
Well, and it also ties into what we're going to talk about today, listening to your inner voice, because I do have to say, my life the past 15, 20 years has been a lot about movement. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a nomad. I'm like a gypsy, and I love moving. I love experiences. I have no problem with transitions, and it's that feeling of, I know you probably understand this, Debar, maybe you don't, I don't know, we'll see, being in the military and like moving every few years, or just having the ability to get up and go. Sometimes you get that itch and you're like, oh, I want something different, I want something. So figuring out how to do that in your life without in the right season or in the right moment, without doing it the way that you typically know how to.
Yeah
Yeah,
that's interesting.
What that means to you and how. Yes,
that's the cool thing, because it's like, for me, I realized that a lot of the times I would move because that's what helped me, quote unquote, get away from my inner turmoil that I was going through, that I didn't understand. So like moving really gave me something huge to focus on, because packing and finding a new home and fixing it up, it's so much fun and all that. So now I'm at a point in my life where I'm able to really distinguish between, I belong in that other place, or I'm running away from this place, and just being listening to my inner voice. So I'm really looking forward to our topic today. I think it's a very hot topic because I've been hearing it pop up everywhere.
Absolutely. And I think that's why that we decided to move forward with this today, because really understanding how do you actually hear that inner voice, and understanding that you don't need some kind of magic crystal ball, or I don't know, just, you don't have to have something physical in order to help facilitate that. It's really about channeling your intuition, your guide, and like you said, the GPS system like we have on the description. It's like your internal GPS that helps you make the decisions that you make, whether that's in following these little internal nudges that you get to make a decision, or sign up for something, or take that course or do a class or whatever it is,
Right.
or needing or knowing that you need more sleep in your life, no matter what it is. Learning how to really tap into that intuition and kind of act on those little nudges or whispers, even if they don't seem logical to you at the time.
Because I think that it doesn't seem logical to us because we allow the judgment of our communities or our society to kind of overshadow that, you know. So I feel like we've been so trained not to listen to that, but to become very structured to what we should be doing as a society, as a community, as a culture, as whatever it is that, you know, kind of like you go to school, you sit at your desk, you know, behind a chair, you're quiet, you know, like you got to do that. And then, you know, are we really learning and being who we are when we're putting everybody in that? It's almost like, for me, it's more like living life out of fear of not conforming.
Yeah.
And then, but it's the other way around. If we all have the freedom to, like you're saying, just exploring different things, and you enjoy life more, you know. Our inner voice is beautiful.
Well, and what I think is really important about that is knowing how to create the space for your inner voice to come through. And, you know, one of the reasons that I hear that people say, like, oh, you know, I don't understand like intuition or like listening to my inner voice. And a lot of times it's because we don't focus on understanding that trusting and following through could be because we're not allowing space for it to come in, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, you know, like even talking about whether it be, you know, meditation or quiet time or, you know, a workout for you, or, you know, 5 minutes every morning when you wake up, how do you create that space for your inner voice to come through? And not making it a chore.
Right.
Like, oh, I have to take 10 minutes every day to do this, because if I don't, you know, kind of squeeze it in alongside any other like activities that you feel like you maybe do mindlessly throughout your day. And
yeah. And I like the, like I was sharing with you before we hopped on live, is the idea of being curious of those little moments of like the close. One example would be like, you know, if you're, I don't know, like maybe walking in the mall or, you know, a shopping center, and you're going to, I don't know, you're going to H-E-B, and then you see this little store, it catches your attention, and you're like, oh, I never noticed that little store before. In that moment is, you know, this is one of the ways to realize that you have that inner voice. It's like, oh, well, maybe something is calling me to go into that store. And taking those little moments of saying, oh, you know what, before I go into H-E-B, I'm just gonna walk into that store, and like kind of following through with this, like, you know, what made me notice this, you know, this tree now, what made me notice this store now. And that's one of the things that really has helped me. You become very present too, you know, you become aware. It's like, oh, that caught my attention, you know, why is it, you know, calling my name?
Yes, I love it. And, you know, I know that I have actually, as you're talking about that, I have this great example. We were driving to practice last night for, you know, Sophia, Monday through Thursday, every evening. And anyway, long story short, we were driving and we were talking to each other, and there's this house on the side of the road that's a little setback, but it's a beautiful, like, older home. I was like, man, I love that house. It's so pretty, just the way that it's set up. And it's kind of like, I want to say maybe like that, I don't know how to explain it, but like that Adobe style, like, home, adobo, or however you say it. So anyway, Sophia's like, that's a new house. I've never seen that before. And I was like, no, actually, it's been there the entire time.
Wow.
She was like, no, it has. I was like, yes, it has. It's just that they've now, like, they cleared it out. They cleaned up the yard a little bit. You can see through the trees. The home looks beautiful. And she was like, seriously? That's been there for 4 years since we've been here? I was like, yes, we drive by it every single day back and forth. And she's like, wow. So just like, there was a reason why we noticed that yesterday, and it kind of came into our attention, or, you know.
Yeah, it could be as simple as the feelings that it brought up, the conversation that it brought up.
Yeah.
And those are all signs of your inner voice and your intuition, and it guides you to places where you have experiences that will have you step into the best you every day.
Yeah. And then also, like you were saying, paying attention to like the emotions that it brings up, you know. When I do classes with kids, which we'll talk about a little bit later on, it's like really understanding, you know, how does this make me feel? What comes through? Is it just like feedback, or is it like a part of you trying to get your attention and telling you something? Or do you see like a certain color associated with it? It's really neat once you start really paying attention to what your emotions are telling you in certain situations.
It can be kind of either whatever expression it is, either intimidating, you know, creating some fear. But once we realize that the fear or the resistance comes from the mindset that we have to fit in a certain way, you know, like, you know, if I want to, you know, wear this outfit because I like it and it's speaking to me, compared to like, oh, what are they going to say? You know, I can't wear this outfit to this place, you know, like, and sometimes I'm not saying that, you know, there are certain rules and there's certain expectations so we can live together as a society. What I'm talking more about is just really being aware of when we make decisions based on what we think other people expect of us, and then our own little fire inside just gets, you know, squished out of fear, out of expecting to please others, and, you know, to be doing the right thing and stuff like that. So it can tug on you and make you, I was like, oh no, I can't do that, this doesn't feel good. And realizing the difference between it doesn't feel good because that's not what your intuition is guiding you to, and it doesn't feel good because you're scared that it's not going to be the norm and what's expected of you.
Yeah. There's actually a great little exercise that you can do to kind of help, I guess you can say, well, because I said exercise, I guess you can say like kind of strengthen that intuitive muscle. But it's exactly what you're saying is, you know, take a look back at like your life and collecting some kind of like intuition data per se, you know, get a notebook, start writing down like, oh, when I had these big events in my life or these big decisions that I made, like what was the decision? You know, how did I feel about it? You know, trying to remember like what happened during that moment in time that led you to that specific one. Kind of like tracking patterns.
Yeah.
Starting to understand how your emotions and how you evolve, you know, over time, and how you learn that like, wow, this emotion led me to this decision, but now I know next time that I need to pay more attention to that because I remember how it felt last time and I'm not going to feel that way again. Or, you know, in a positive light, the opposite way.
Right.
You know, this made me feel really great when I did this, so I'm going to keep doing that and tracking it, and sometimes writing it down and doing something like that, just simple, like journaling. You had talked a little bit about, you brought that up beforehand, journaling and understanding your boundaries with your emotions. I'd love to talk a little bit more about that too.
The journaling part, I mean, there's so many, I think a lot of people have heard of journaling, and it's been brought up a lot. And one of the ideas is like not to get caught up in like, what am I going to write about, but just literally say, okay, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to fill, 3 pages out no matter what. And then just start writing whatever. I mean, like literally whatever, just write. And then by the time you get to the 3rd page, you'll notice your inner voice coming out, emotions, ideas, and that's such a beautiful way to really practice listening to your intuition, inner voice, what is speaking to you.
I do that if I'm like upset or stressed about something, and by the time I'm done or halfway through, it's amazing how the tension in my body kind of leaves.
Yeah.
That's what I always notice. I have a tendency to do that when I have a stressful situation or upset or frustrated. And as I'm writing, and by the end of it, I'm like, wow, you feel so much lighter, and you kind of just get it out of you.
Yeah. And that kind of relates to, being in the flow, how we were talking about that, is doing activity where you're lost in it, where you literally like lose track of time and everything. So it allows our mind to take a breath, it's just like, because we're so going, there's so much going on, but it's pretty cool how you explained it, because it relaxes you and you feel so much better, and you're in the flow of something that takes you away from because anxieties and stress is all what we think about. I mean, totally, huh? It's like so
well, and I can never ever really articulate enough, I guess, or the importance of breathing.
Oh yeah.
It's one of the simplest things that you can do. And like you said, like letting your mind take a deep breath and just pausing and relaxing. It's the same thing with like regulating your nervous system.
Yeah.
Just breathe, take a few deep breaths, pay attention to how you breathe. That's one of the things that I really focus on and teach in the kids' classes, is just really like, breathing through your nose and out through your mouth, and just taking those few moments. And sometimes that's the internal switch that just makes, most of the time, it will make a world of a difference.
It does. It gives us a sense of good kind of control, because it's not something that we do. I mean, of course, we breathe naturally all the time.
Yes,
but we become very aware of breathe in and breathe out. Your mind is focused on that. And, of course, the breathing alone is great because you have the oxygen flow. You're telling your mind you're calm. You're putting it, and then and you're also kind of meditating and being in the moment. So, but I love what you're doing with the kids, and let's have you talk a little bit more about that, because that is so incredible. I think it's the generation where we've got to reach out to, like, the next generation coming up, giving them those tools. And so share some of what you're doing. I love the stories about how you have all the different ages and the different.
Yes. Well, it's, it's a lot of fun, and I'm not gonna lie, there aren't a lot of there's not a lot of consistency with it, because the ages, I'm going to try to explain this the right way. I don't know if that didn't come out the right way. So with the classes that I teach, the age groups are from like kindergarten to 6th grade, right? So in regards to having a set, like for me, I've had to really listen to my inner voice and say like, okay, it's okay. You have this plan, you know what lesson you want to teach for this week, but understanding that like kindergartners aren't going to react the same as 6th graders. So, one of the things I do is really focus on, the basic, simple postures and breathing that help, build confidence and resiliency. So for example, this week, a lot of the things that we focused on was, different types of breathing And the repetition of pausing in between certain yoga poses or, meditation, and saying, okay, breathe, take a deep breath in and out. Okay. And one of the things that I do is really kind of relate it to their everyday life. So for example, I'll take this yoga and go on an adventure and do something like, all right, we're going to build this fort, and kind of relate it to like Minecraft or Roblox. Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to have this adventure. We're going to build this fort. And take them through poses like I am strong, and start off with yoga pose. I am brave, and maybe transition into warrior pose. Talk about being graceful and teach them how to do tree pose. Talking about confidence and relating that to, cobra pose. And then I kind of throw in little things like, all right, now we got to do, what do you need to chop down? What do you need in order to chop down a tree and make this fort and cut your wood? Show them how to build an axe with their bodies and do the motions of being strong and confident, and relate that in. Talking about pride and being proud of themselves, and doing something like cat cow. And then at the end, like, I appreciate myself, thank yourself, thank your body, doing like a bridge pose and showing your strength and everything that you've done to get to this point. And then once we've gone through all of those poses and like built this like imaginary fort, then we talk about like, all right, let's build this strong foundation. Let's focus on this bed, this foundation that we need to put in our fort, and maybe do some like planks, focus on your core work. And the kids usually love that, because you make an adventure out of it. You build a story out of it. Yeah. And then, once that they've built this fort on their own, and they're all like cozy and they get comfortable on their mats, then we go through a little bit of like a meditation or a body scan, and relate that to breathing, their feelings, listening to their inner voice, connecting to their emotions. Even something as simple as like, put your hands on your heart. Is your heart beating fast? Or is it slow? What color comes to mind? It doesn't always have to be red. It could be yellow or orange, because you're happy and relaxed. And helping them understand also, like, the outside noises. Do you hear your neighbor moving around? Or is your tummy grumbling, because it's time for a snack? Giving them, so with kids especially, it's really important to give them a lot of verbal cues, because they don't necessarily always know how to express themselves. But I mean, that's with adults too, actually. It's always important to verbalize and try to put emotions and words to what you're feeling and what you're hearing. Because the only way, one of the things I love to tell kids is the only way you're going to get to learn your mind is to actually practice things with your mind. So the only way that you're going to get to learn about yourself is to learn about your mind. And that really helps with, okay, what am I feeling? And then the colors, associating that with colors, not only works for kids, but it also works for, it works for adults. And then also the practice of like, okay, the meditation is over. Let's come back to where we are. Let's come back to, the gym that we're in. We're back at school. How do we wake our bodies up and get ready for the next thing? Because we can't always just sleep all day, or when we have to do something, or when we're in a routine or a practice, we might have to understand that, like, all right, we gotta get ready to go, we gotta get motivated again, so let's get our bodies moving again. So that's just a quick example of something that, talking about like learning and teaching how to listen to your voice, regulating your emotions, your body, your nervous system, understanding what works for you and what doesn't. Because no matter how old you are, that is a skill that can help you throughout your entire life, and then it can always change. Yeah. So to get that foundation of learning how to trust yourself.
Yeah, it is, because we're definitely pulled away from all of that. I've seen it, like just looking back at, me growing up and the next generation. And I taught art at school 1 year, and I mean, they had taken all the art programs out of schools, even elementary school level. I mean, it's just so amazing how we have taken out all these things that connect us with who we are as individuals.
Yeah.
And we're experiencing the results of all that. We become a society, many of us are like, but the exciting part is that there's really a transformation movement. People are wanting to get back to this, living from your heart, from a loving space, rather than, out of fear, but out of love, and connect with that beautiful creation that we were made. We're individually just beautiful creations. But I thought your whole visualization of building a fort was so awesome. And it would work with adults too, whoever.
Yeah, actually you're right.
I hear sometimes, with me doing the yoga and the meditation and that at Amazon, I hear some of the management, I mean, literally like, oh, we don't have time for this. And I remember, I mean, like, it's like a lesson for me when I tell myself, oh, I don't have time. Or it's like, okay, Adiva, that's when you really need to.
Yeah. Well, and it's really about, like, I think we said this earlier, or I don't remember, but just creating that space, allowing that space in your mind. It doesn't always have to be, a room or a class or, a physical fort.
Right.
Understanding that you don't need to have somewhere physical and tangible in order to be able to do this. And really understanding that, your mind is a muscle like any other, parts of your body. And, when I talk to kids about learning how to find your happy place, a lot of what I talk about is just, repetition, because then, when you need that break, when you need that time out, that muscle is going to go right back to that happy place.
Yeah.
And it's going to take you there. When you don't even know it.
Yeah.
As you practice and get that muscle, your mind working.
It's 100% true for me. I remember we shared one time about how hearing the birds outside take me to this space of.
Yes. Yeah.
And I mean, this morning, same thing. I'm in the bathroom getting ready, and the birds chirp, and it's like instantly my mind goes to this. Oh, like grateful, being like. So it's just so true, as you were saying, that it becomes like, you're riding the bike, or you're driving your car, you get in there, you're gone. Sometimes you don't even remember how you got where you are by driving. Yeah. But it's so true. It's a muscle that you build, and then it becomes and it doesn't stop. Like you continue to evolve and develop. And it's really beautiful. We had one of the things, as you were talking about, it doesn't matter where you are, that you can be anywhere and actually get your mind to go there, is because your mind doesn't know the difference really about you being there or thinking about being there.
Yeah.
It's so powerful. And once we get that, it's incredible. I mean, it's just so, yes, it's nice. It's different to be on the beach and be away from all that, because it really puts you in that space. And at the same time, if we really, really understand that physically and mentally and emotionally, and our whole nervous system is impacted in such a powerful way by just thinking, and building that muscle with the thought is incredible. It's something that it's a gift that we all have, so we can
You said beach and I heard the waves.
Yeah.
My mind instantly went there.
Smiled. Oh, and the practice listening is another way to, like, listening to other people is another way to become aware of your own inner voice. And as I was, reading articles, I thought that was really powerful, is just taking the time to really listen, and watch your thoughts and judgment and what are you going to say next and all that, like, to practice just listening, and then knowing that when that person is done, then the conversation is going to continue naturally, because now you know exactly what that person is saying, right? Like, you really tuned in. And it's the same practice to that will help us as individuals listen to our inner voice, because then we're taking the time from allowing our conscious brain to just try to figure everything else out, that we don't hear the other person, but we also don't hear our inner voice. And I thought that was really powerful too.
That's actually something that I always have to be very conscious of personally. My human nature is to want to, when I'm talking to somebody, is to want to, like, relate to it or give an example or say, like, yeah, I totally get this. I remember a time when I felt the same way. And you're not, like you said, you're not always really listening to that person. So I just kind of have to, like, very consciously sit in my mind and be like, my mind is stirring with these thoughts that I want to say. And I'm like, no, like, don't do that. Don't, just listen to the person, pay attention. It's actually harder to do that than, if you pay attention, it's harder to do that active listening for some people. I guess what I'm trying to say is it's harder than you think it is. It doesn't come natural for you.
But then again, it's that muscle you talked about.
Yes. So it's just doing it over and over again, and it becomes easier and easier. And then you kind of start to realize that, like, oh, like, your brain isn't trying to, like, speak to you anymore and trying to relate. It's just really listening.
Yeah. And it works. We'll have to do an episode on just communication and relationships, because I've become more aware with, just even me and Darren, my husband, having conversations, and how I want to, like, jump in and, like, no.
Yeah.
And then the more the practice is like, okay, just wait till the end of the conversation. And, in the past, that could create, like, just giving my feedback right away changes his conversation, right? Because now he's reacting to what I'm saying, and it becomes more of a reaction rather than a conversation.
Yeah.
Everybody's in their own space going. So we'll have to do an episode on relationship communications, how to.
Yeah. That would be another good one.
Yeah. So
I agree with you.
It really makes all the difference, is that just listening, and boundaries with, when I thought of boundaries before I shared that with you, is boundaries of not being abused. I guess in my mind was, don't let anyone beat you up, don't let anyone talk bad about you, don't let anyone take advantage of your kindness, and you do so much, and yes. But I love the process of really putting boundaries on other people's thoughts. So people think, well, it's better to do this and you should do that, and not allowing other people's opinion. Yeah, listen and be open-minded, and cultivate what's possible, and use that, but putting boundaries on how that influences your decisions and changing what you do, and not following your intuition. So when not allowing other people's opinions and thoughts. take away your beautiful inner voice that's there to guide you on your path.
Well, I was going to say, one of the things that I like to kind of think about or say to myself, you know, when that's going on, when I'm trying to, like, when I have like all these like questions swirling in my head or all these answers that I think I have, I just try to say, like, Tanya, don't let your mind take over.
Yeah.
You know? So instead of saying, like, Tanya, like, stop getting anxious, like, don't focus on the anxiety or the stressful part of it. Just, like, you know, don't let your mind take over, because, you know, 9 times out of 10, the problem is that, like, you hear so many voices and ideas swirling around your head. It's hard to understand what your intuition actually is, right? Like, what that inner voice is, because all of a sudden you're letting it all, like, oh my goodness, and if this, and if that, and if this, and if that. So my rule of thumb is, like, okay, what was my first answer? Before my mind or my voice even started trying to take over, or before, like, my voice started, like, talking to my mind, before it actually had time to process it, what was my first gut answer?
Yeah.
And that is usually the way to go for me. I don't know if that works for everyone. I try to, like, you know, when I talk to people, I try to spread the word about that, because I feel like it works a lot.
Yeah.
You know, and what is your gut instinct?
Yeah.
You know, what is the first answer that comes to your head before it actually has time to process everything? And then, you know, think about that.
Yeah.
Then start to rule out, okay, well, because I'm not going to say this. Sometimes your gut answer is not always the right answer. I know that sounds conflicting as I say it out loud.
I mean, is it that, or is it that you are overshadowing your gut instinct by something that your mind is doing? And to me, that, I think that's more of the truth, is that it's not the gut instinct. It's our logical thinking. No, I shouldn't do that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And even if it goes against what you typically feel or what you typically think, understanding that, like, wow, well, that was the first answer that came to my head. Okay, maybe I don't agree with it, but maybe there's a reason for that.
Right.
Like, something else is trying to come through.
Yeah. And that's the gut instinct. Like, so I really don't think you're contradicting it. I think it's more of a clarification, is that, you know, our mind, our conscious mind comes in to make it logical of the way that it should fit in life, and we question it. But then it's a question because the true gut instinct, you're trying to overshadow it. You're trying to, you know, we're trying to force it in a different way. You know? So I really don't think you're contradicting all that. I think it just proves even more that we are, our consciousness, you know, we use our mind to really, out of fear, do something else. You know, we don't want to trust that.
Yeah.
And
well, I'm glad it didn't come out that way, because as I was speaking, I was like, wait a minute, did I just say that in a confusing way? Making sure.
It's not at all. It really shows that, you know, as humans, we will do that. And then we question ourselves. And that's part of the process, to keep us away from just being in that joy and happiness, because that's what listening to our instinct brings us, is that peace, the joy. But then you get this, you know, the mind that's educated with all this.
Yeah. Well, I just gave you a great example. We practiced it, like, live.
Yeah.
But it really does ring true, because, you know, it's really focusing on that mind and body connection, you know, and when I work with kids and they ask, like, why is breathing, like, so important? Why do you keep telling us to breathe, like, you know, in between or every other? And, you know, one of the ways that I like to explain it is that it kind of like, think of like it kind of washes out all of those like cobwebs or that fog in your mind. I always try to think of like something in relation to like animals or something that kids can relate to. So, when you breathe in through your nose and then you breathe out through your mouth, it really helps to connect your mind to your heart. And it's like that inner kind of like, you talk about like the circle of life, but it's kind of like that circle of breath, and really working that mind body connection.
Yeah.
Especially when you're in a state of confusion or frustration or anger, you're not just breathing.
Yeah.
It's not just about the breath. It's really connecting, what you're thinking with how it's making you feel.
Yeah. And it's that repetition, and it goes back to the muscle, to get them to get all of us to strengthen that muscle and get. I think because it's not tangible, it is tough.
Mm-hmm.
Like as humans, a lot of us want this very tangible, scientific base. This is a piece of paper. I understand. That's what you called it, and I have it in my hand. But how do you explain this breath flowing through? Can't see it. But with practicing and really working that muscle, it gives them. And then when they leave and they become very aware of how they feel, then it starts making that connection. And I know for me, even I remember when I was real little, I used to have nightmares and scared, but I always had that. And I'm very grateful for that, because looking back, I had this sense inside of me that there was something that's protecting me. And for me, it's also a connection with my spiritual part and with God, that is like, it's going to be okay. Like, just get through this moment. And it's this sense of like, I'm going to come out on the other side okay. And I feel like that's what has been taken away from a lot of us in general, is like, this is the paper, this is the way it should be. But when we start listening to our intuition, it's like, wait a minute, it's not so tangible. But we can get there, and we do get there.
We do. And actually, I just was thinking of another idea that, I use in classes with the kids that really helps them to relate, but it also works with adults, is especially in regards to like brain health, is, balancing the left and the right side of your brain. So anything that you do that's opposites, whether it be like right arm, right leg, or like going out sideways, or, the way I try to explain it is that like the left side helps with your gut and your intuition, and the right side is more like the logical thinking and your mind. So for kids, when I tell them working opposites, your right side of your brain with your left side of your brain helps with not only that, but also your critical thinking skills, how to make those decisions. And then they relate it to like gaming, especially gaming. They're all like, what? Like, I can get better at video games if I do like this exercise every day or this pose. And I'm like, yes, you got it. So something as simple as that, where they don't even realize that they're doing, a pose or an exercise. You heard the Boston come out?
Where are you from again?
Anyway, so even something simple like that, and and incorporating that into your life and relating it to something like gaming for kids. You're like, oh, I want to get smarter, I want to get better at like my I'm trying to think of another word for critical thinking skills, but also like logical, or that hand communication with your brain and figuring out all of that, it just kind of helps to strengthen and connect it all.
And it's really important to do that. I mean, because as humans, we want some tangible things, and then we learn, once we have that little bit of, assurance and understanding. And that's why, I mean, there's some great science now that talks about, that the quantum physics and all that is just incredible. It gives you some facts. And then we get to the point where we trust that intuition, and we just know it's there, and we work that muscle. I remember in class where, doing poses where we balance, whether it's the tree or any kind of balancing, and then sharing with, because I have taught seniors.
Yeah.
It all started that, I was guided down that avenue. But I would share with them how balancing helps with memory also. And then, so we give each other those little things that click, and then it allows us to practice that more and get excited. And then that leads to the next phase. You're like, oh, wow, I remember one lady one time telling me, I had to adjust the rear view mirror in my car because now I'm sitting taller. And so not only that it did that for her, but that she noticed that, right? So that's an awareness of how your body is being, which is really cool too. And here I am, like literally probably 15 years ago, she told me that. It was someone that it stuck with me, that gives me also this moment of like, wow, yeah, I've got to keep reaching out, and my purpose is to open that communication. I'll be talking about purpose with Jamie later today. I'm excited about that. I saw her hop on. I don't know if she's still on, but and then, talking about the mind thing, I wanted us to touch base real quick also on the mental and physical health and well-being, and how important that is, because we can do a lot of things we can practice the yoga, we can sleep better, but that can all be interrupted if physically we're not nurturing ourselves well enough. If we're not eating or not drinking, like how that impacts your brain is not being hydrated, and how important that mental and physical well-being, and then also and self-care. I really, taking care of that will allow us to connect with our inner voice better, because then we're physically, it's kind of like if you don't eat all day, and you see some people get really grouchy.
Yeah.
Like
angry.
Yeah.
That's the millennial term for it.
What is it?
I said hangry.
Oh, hangry.
Hangry.
Well, it's good that there's a term for it. Then we can transform it into something to happy.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, I absolutely love that. That's so important to remember about, the mental and the physical, and making sure that you're taking care of yourself and your body, just as much. And also understanding that doesn't look the same for every person.
Oh yeah.
I have definitely struggled in the past with what is the right way to do it? You got to eat 3 meals a day. You got to eat every 2 hours. Don't stop eating at 5 p.m. This and that. It's so crazy how diet culture makes us think that we have to do something one way or another, and really come to terms with being happy in your skin and understanding. I know we've talked about this before, but what works for you? If you're a night owl and you don't go to bed till midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, who's to say you can't have dinner at 8 p.m.?
Right.
There's still 4 hours before you go to bed, right? So do we have to conform to these rules of you need to wake up and you need to have breakfast as soon as you get up, or you have to have it before 11 or else your blood sugar drops? If you don't wake up till 10, have breakfast at noon. Who cares?
I
Right?
always thought they need to start school later. It's like not every child can get up at 5 a.m. and go to school. It's like, what's wrong with that?
I know. So like really understanding what works for you. And I've been in so many places. I'm one of those people that when I wake up in the morning, I don't like to eat right away. I will make my coffee. And I know that there's plenty of people like this. I'll make my coffee. But whenever I travel or I stay with family or, I go somewhere different, I always feel like, hey, we get up, we make breakfast. Let's go. Let's get ready for the day. And I'm like, I'm not hungry yet. I don't want to eat yet. You're not hungry. You should eat something. No, I'm not ready to eat yet. I'm going to wait until I am. And because that also ties into family. Like,
Right.
I grew up with, we sit at the dinner table and we have dinner together, which is great and amazing for conversation and connection.
Yeah.
But also like our schedules nowadays, we're not all home at the same time.
Yeah.
And for a while I felt so guilty that I wasn't doing this thing where we all sat at the dinner table like I was used to growing up, and so you know what? That's not our life anymore. But instead, we take the time as parents to individually connect with them at different times or on different levels, and being okay with that.
And listening to your intuition with that. I mean, that's such a good example of, is it what I want to do because that's what my inner voice, my soul is calling me to do, because that's where, or is it because that's what I should be doing because of the past, and balance, like you're saying, that being in tune with what speaks to us helps us disconnect from what society has labeled as what should be done, right?
Yeah, right.
And that helps relieve the guilt and being very aware of, like, what's an example? Like now, with games and all that, right? Because that's one of the things is that get away from technology to allow yourself to hear your inner voice. So one of the things is that to really be connected with, like, if I want to sit down and watch TV all day, 24/7, all my life, eat on the couch, just watch it because that's what I feel like, to really be aware of that inner voice is what that is. It because you're not feeling good enough to get up and move, and understanding that as humans we need that that mental and physical well-being and all that. And what I'm trying to say is that distinguishing between what we convince ourselves is okay compared to really listening to our inner voice. Because we can get in a rut or depression or in a bad mood by convincing ourselves, well, I just want to sit here and I like to play games, or I like to watch TV, or I like to sit on the beach 24/7. And really being honest with ourselves and being able to to talk to someone else, to really practice all these different ways to really be honest with ourselves and listen to that voice inside. Because we can convince ourselves, 12 pack of beer every 2 hours is what I want to do because it's good for me.
Yeah.
And it's not about judging anyone else. It's really, my whole point is that to really be honest with ourselves.
Yeah.
To have that, to give ourselves that quiet time, and like you were talking about, to breathe, to listen. And then when I feel stuck in a place where I'm convincing myself this is what I want to do, I'm going to do it, but inside is like, something needs to change. This is a good time to reach out to, either a professional counselor or a good friend, or listen to podcasts. There's a lot of good information out there, but to open ourselves to find the ways to make that shift, and just become very aware of what we're trying to tell ourselves is good for us and what our gut is really telling us.
find that shift and follow your own path.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think that that's actually an amazing way to end, because we're getting close to about an hour here. We could talk. I know we could talk forever.
I know.
But, you know, I love the idea of ending on those, on the idea of, you know, figuring out ways to make that shift happen, and really paying attention to, you know, how to follow your own path, how to listen to your inner voice, and cultivate, you know, kind of like cultivating a new relationship with yourself and with that intuition.
Yeah. And I really believe that whoever is listening, they are reaching out to make that shift, because things come into our path because we're looking. So it's always exciting to do this with you, Tanya, to know that it will be heard. Even, I say that often, even just one person, because that's all it takes, is that one person that's looking and ready to make that shift, to just live happy and step into their best self every single moment. So thank you for being here, Tanya.
Thank you, Adiba. This was a great morning and a great way to end the week, the long weekend.
A great way to start a new month.
And oh my gosh, that's right. It's July 1st.
Yeah.
Great way to start a new month as well.
It's the second half of the year. A lot of things are happening.
Wow. So. I know.
So, well, have an awesome weekend, and everybody out there, have a great rest of the day. Reach out to us. You can. We will have this uploaded on YouTube, on Spotify, Facebook. Reach out to us. We're here to help you step into the best you every single day on 1010 Talks. And I'll let Tanya wrap it up with her words.
So yes, I mean, as I was saying, follow your own path. The one thing that I want to leave with today and really, you know, drive home is that just like any other relationship in life, you really have to get to know it. You really have to get to know yourself. You have to understand, you know, who you are and what you believe in order to be able to follow your own path. And I think that's how I'd love to wrap it up, because that's one of the most important things to think about and end this conversation with is, who are you?
Thank you for watching 1010 Talks. We're always so excited and happy and feeling so blessed to be able to do this together and for you and everyone that is watching. Thanks for watching, and take care. Love you. Bye.